What's up, my little pretties? It's your mistress, Lioness here, and today we are going to be reviewing a movie that most people will remember seeing this probably in theaters as a kid, and even those who are experiencing this movie for the very first time. And that we're going to review today, my little pretties, is called Curious George. Curious George came out in 2006, and this movie is based on the Curious George books that have been around for a while. Most people who were born around the 90s, even grew up in the 90s or early 2000s, will probably remember reading the Curious George books as a kid. Even I remember reading those books as a kid, and I also remember watching this movie as a kid to this day. Now, this is actually one of my very first movies I've ever watched as a kid, and to this day, I still really enjoyed this movie. Even though I watched it for the first time in like a long time, I actually still remember how good this movie was. Like, I know the early and mid 2000s, were just a very busy year for a lot of were busy years for a lot of movies. So, before I get started with my review on Curious George, I just want to say right now that I'm going to be spoiling pretty much everything about the movie. So if you have not seen Curious George, I highly recommend you click off this video right now and go check it out, as it's a really, really, really good movie. And I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Alright, with that said, let's begin. Now, Curious George is basically about a man in a yellow hat, or Ted, working at a museum, but of course, it was a history museum, but of course, Mr. Bloomsbury, and he was very disappointed at the time because the museum isn't making enough money as they used to be, nothing good is there anymore, and they're basically wanting to close it down, and of course, Junior, or in this case, Mr. Bloomsbury's son, wants to basically he wants to take the museum down and make a parking lot, but of course Ted says that the world does not need a new parking lot. He wants a place where children's brains can grow. So of course they decide to go to Africa. Well, of course Mr. Bloomsbury said he was going to plan to go to Africa so he can get like a monkey statue, which I forgot what it was, but if you guys want to let me know what monkey statue was, just let me know let me know in the comments below. But of course, Ted decides to go for Mr. Bloomsbury to discover this monkey statue. However, he ends up finding the monkey statue, but of course it was a small thing, so he kind of mispronounced like the word. So he takes that thing home, and of course it was very tiny. But however, when Ted gets back to New York, but however, before he goes back there, he meets a monkey named Curious George who gets his yellow hat, and of course he follows him from Africa all the way back home to New York City. Now, of course, Ted has to go to the museum to show Mr. Bloomsbury the monkey statue that he found. So, of course, George follows him home, and of course he finds out that George had been following Ted all the way from Africa. So, of course, Ted gets evicted from his apartment when Curious George started making a mess of stuff, started causing mischief, basically, in the apartments. So basically, ever since Ted was kicked out, he basically goes to the museum, and he explains to Mr. Bloomsbury about that little monkey statue. And of course they say, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? So what happens in the next part is, Ted and George end up sleeping outside for the night, but then the next day they go to the zoo in the park, and of course they actually run into one of their friends, and they somehow found a projector to make the object of the monkey statue that is tiny bigger. So they try to do that by putting that in, and of course it did work until Junior gave George coffee, and of course it ruins the electronics. So the museum becomes permanently closed down, and Ted ends up trying to tell George to leave. But of course, the night before, what Ted does not realize is that he called for animal control about George, about a dangerous monkey. So of course, George gets taken back to Africa, but however, he was stuck in the boat. So basically, Ted goes after George, and of course, as soon as he goes after George, he frees him, and they are back in Africa, and they actually found the statue, as they had to hold the miniature statue up high so the sunlight can go through it. And they eventually find the real monkey statue, and the museum reopens again with new stuff, and basically have like fun activities for kids and stuff. And that's basically pretty much where the movie ends. Alright, with that said, that's my review on Curious George. Now, what did I think of this movie? It's a really great movie. Like, I honestly really remembered watching this movie as a kid. Like, I could definitely say that this movie actually was really good. Now, I know there might have been maybe one or two flaws that were in this case in here, but I'm willing to excuse them because I can't really pronounce what flaws they were, but I could definitely say that there were, I think, one or two flaws in the movie. But other than that, this movie was really well done. Like, there was a lot of funny scenes, there were a lot of good jokes and stuff, and I honestly found this movie to be quite enjoyable. As a kid, I really do enjoy this movie as a kid. And by the way, this is the very first movie I've ever seen as a kid in the movie theater. Now, this is the very first movie I saw in theaters, and I honestly enjoyed it. I honestly loved it. I thought it was a good movie. I honestly do wish that this movie gets more recognition, and I really do hope one day people start, watching this movie more and more as time goes on. However, though, is there anything negative I have to say about this movie? No, actually. I have nothing negative on this movie. I honestly found this movie to be, quite enjoyable. I like the concept itself to be rather nice. I like the storyline of how the movie went out. And I even like the plot line, and the characters were funny. Will Ferrell did a great job as voicing Ted. And, of course, the teacher that he likes, I cannot remember her name, but she is played by Drew Barrymore, which they both did a great job, and I honestly found this movie to be quite enjoyable, very funny, and very entertaining. So, with all due sincerity, I actually think that this movie actually did a great job, which of course it did. But with that being said, this is just simply my own personal opinion on Curious George, and if you disagree with me, that's okay too. I'm all forward with all opinions, and I respect people's opinions. As long as they respect mine, we should all be good. My final rating of this movie would have to be a 10 out of 10. It's a great childhood movie. I actually adored it. The animation, everything about it was good. However, though, I do like the actors of this movie. I actually loved everything about it. It was just very well done, and I honestly thought it was quite enjoyable. Now, with that being said, what did you guys think of this movie? Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Also, what would you have done personally to help make this movie a lot better? Leave me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section down below. I'm the Shadow Lioness. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. And if you're brand new here to this channel, be sure you like, comment, and subscribe because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you guys will get notified to when I am uploading. So with that said, I will see you all in the next video. Peace out.